Life. Ain't it grand? Make you want to quit sometimes, right? Um, Definitely have my share of those days. And it ain't too many days that go by where I don't, think about the ulterior. There's ample opportunity. Keep living. Keep living. There's ample opportunity for you to get the fuck up out of here. You know, I know it sounds cliche, and it is cliche. One day at a time, and it really is one day at a time. And for people like me, and very often than not, it's one moment at a time. Because your thoughts kind of vary, and depending on the conversation, depending on what's going on in the house, depending on what your mind is already spinning itself on, it literally is moment to moment a lot of times. Um, so you got to find ways around that. Um, a situation like yours is a little bit more complex. When you're dealing with where you're going to sleep and where you're going to eat, that becomes more of a priority. And that's, in that regard, yeah, that's kind of where racking and stacking your angst comes into play, right? Not knowing what you're going to eat or where you're going to live or lay your head is a lot more troublesome than me having an inconvenience. So I try to be mindful of that, you know. For me, that's easy because my sister was homeless twice within like the last 5 to 7 years, or the last 5 years or so. So that's not really hard. Um, so that kind of grounds me, is knowing that someone close to me is in a situation that they is less than desirable, and they have very little to no control over. You know, some other foolery, kind of in there with regards to the job and some other stuff, but ultimately she doesn't have a lot of control over. So that kept me grounded. But seeing her walk her process. We all have a process. We all have a way to try to figure it out and make sense of the foolery and the yuckery. For some of it's is faith, some of it's exercise, some of us is being workaholics, um, and that can cut both ways. Quite frankly, you know, you've probably heard me say this, but it's all good when it's working until it doesn't work, and that might be something that I delve into more at some point. You know, they say everyone has a plan till they get hit in the face. Mike Tyson coined that phrase. Probably someone else too, but he kind of made it widely known, right? And that might be some fodder, forecasting some fodder, if you will. What do you do when you get hit in the face? What do you do when you get punched? When you have a plan and you walk into a given situation thinking, "Oh, I can copy and paste this," and the situation plays out, the dynamics play out to where it's like, you can't really apply that in this situation. Now what? What else do you have in your toolbox? And this is what this is all about. Life is about adding stuff to your toolbox. You encounter certain people, you encounter certain situations, things that stretch you, things that pull on you and tug on you. Hey, you need another tool. Hey, yeah, you got a screwdriver, but that's a flathead. You need a Phillip. Or you got pliers. You need a wrench. Yeah, it grips, but it doesn't grip with the same veracity, if you will. You know what I'm saying? Life is about tools and how well you use them. And do you know how to use them? Right? Because a lot of us got a whole bunch of tools and we don't use them. Right? I would dare say, and that has a a plethora of meaning. But, some of us may consider some of those tools gifts, right? We have certain gifts and certain abilities that separate us from the average, and yet we don't use them, you know? And I really truly believe that given a situation, it's about use it or lose it. Bible talks about that. Being given certain gifts and being blessed with certain opportunities and squandering it, right? Not putting it to good use, not utilizing it to bless others, to bless yourself. The parable of the talents, if you get an opportunity to check out, is very enlightening. And I think a lot of people believe the Bible is convoluted or it's irky jerky because of all of its allegory, all of its metaphors and indirect subliminal meanings, right? But you judge that for yourself, right? I just know if you look at it with a certain lens and a certain set of glasses, it requires you to dig deep. It requires you to look within and use it as a mirror to look into your own soul, your own being, and apply it to your own situations, right? If you're doing it right. And that's all subject to the person, right? Right. What is right? What does that look like? For some of us, it's just reading. And others, it's following to the letter of the law. And now we're kind of in uncharted waters, if you will. But for the most part, it's about tools. It's about tools. And what do you do when you realize you don't have the right tool for the job? Who do you talk to? Do you go to the foreman? Right? Do you go to him or her? Is there anybody on your team that you can go to help you with a certain project, with a certain task? What do they have? What do they possess? Do they have experience in the particular area that you're struggling in? And that's equally a part of this journey, is the people that you encounter along the way. People are tools too. Just follow me. Maybe not to the degree you think they are, right? Oh, it's such a tool. Yeah, sometimes. But also, I would submit to you, sometimes that's by design. Sometimes it's meant to reveal certain things within you that you're not addressing, right? You ever wonder why you come across the same type of personalities, the same type of people with the same attitude or same issues, right? Maybe that's some of it to a degree, some of it that is a residual effect of what's going on in you that you haven't addressed, right? And maybe it's frankly something that you just haven't dealt with. And that's God's way of saying, I'm giving you another opportunity. I'm giving you another shot, right? Because you're not going to go to the next lesson until you've passed that particular part of the test, right? That's known. It may play out differently. It may play out in certain ways that you may not have anticipated. Different wrinkles, if you will. But chances are, if you get the same assignments, that's a military term, or it could be synonymous for anything else in life, right? You get the same assignments, you have the same type of supervisor, you're around the same people, or seemingly can get out of the situations that that kind of bring you back down to earth, right? It's for a reason. Have you really dealt with it? Maybe it's a reminder that maybe you're not as far as you need, you should be, you need to be. Maybe it's a test. All of which can be true. All of which can be applicable. But you have to assess that for yourself. And in the absence of being able to do that on your own, you ask for wisdom. You ask for discretion. You ask for discernment. You ask for help. And I know in the world of New Age religion and spirituality, it's easy to get in this esoteric philosophical bag, right? It's got to be done in a certain way. Maybe. Ritualistically, right? Sometimes it's really just asking. Sometimes it's not putting any type of extras on it. Sometimes a cheese pizza will do to feed you versus having all the other toppings. So it becomes a matter of a heart thing. Where does your heart lie? What's on your heart? What's in your heart? What are your intentions? What would you will the universe to do if given said power to do so? If you had any stake in the matter, what would you say? And to a large degree, that's kind of part of my self-discovery, is realizing that you have a lot more to say than you think you do. You have a much louder voice than you give yourself credit for. So my question to you is, what are you not giving yourself enough credit for? What flowers are you not presenting to yourself? You got something in you. You may not have honed it. You may not have necessarily identified it to the degree that some others may have acknowledged it within themselves. But you got something, kid. You got something. And that's also part of the journey, is figuring out what that thing is, that one thing that you referred to, right? What is my one thing? Well, that tells me right then and there that you've already acknowledged that you have something. You may not know what it is, but you know it's something. He gave you something. He gave you some type of tool. He gave you some type of escape plan. And not that type of escape plan. But he gave you the means and the wherewithal to navigate this choppy course that we call life. Right? Who did he put around you? Where did he put you? Do you grow where you're planted? Right? Because we're a seed. I know, like I said, there's a lot of allegory and a lot of euphemisms and other subliminal meanings, and some more direct than others, but he's talking to you. Just gotta listen. He's talking to you. That's another question. With as much as, the need to find a voice and feel valid, how much of our own voice are we squelching because we're unsure of ourselves? Or we downplay just how important we are? That's a possibility. I do it. I do it often. But again, I try to find something within my day to acknowledge that. Utilizing a gift. A musical gift, or a writing gift, or a helping gift even. That's a gift. Helping people is a gift. Right? To gift is to give. So it makes sense. Why wouldn't it be a gift? Even if it's just of your time, it's a gift. So you got something in you. And you're working on it. You're not all the way there. You don't have it all the way figured out. But you've had enough encounters up to this point, up until this day, to realize that you have something. Right? Question is, what are you going to do about it? What are you going to do about it? Do something different. Do something different. You know, are you crazy? Do you do the same things requiring a different result? Right? That's what Einstein said. It's the definition of crazy. Pretty spot on. But there's another form of crazy. There's another form of crazy that says, I'm just crazy enough to do something different. I'm just crazy enough to listen to my voice, follow my intuition, follow my gut, if you will, follow my inner voice that's saying, hey, you're good at this. You should try that. Just to try it. Not to prove anything and that is grandiose or is going to be on a monumental level as someone who's in entertainment or someone else who has some type of lofty influence. But for you. If no one else, for you. Are you crazy enough to try something different? Obviously, what you're doing is not working, or it's not working to the level of success that you would have it to work, right? Well, dare say some would argue that believing in a higher power is crazy. Fanatical, even. Well, what's fanatical? What is fanatical, really? And who's to say what fanatical is, being that they're not you? You know? We all have our own way of dealing with stuff. And that doesn't make it right or make it wrong. It just means we're working with whatever we got to the best of our abilities until something bigger, better, and brighter comes along. Someone bigger, better, brighter comes along. He knows that. He knows that. I can guarantee you he knows that. He meaning that the Most High. And that's where grace comes up and is set abound. Right? The liberty to be able to explore and search for answers. You may know it as free will. Right? But I would implore you to look within. Look within. You probably have a lot more answers and, dare I say, tools that you give yourself credit for. You may have a louder voice than you give yourself credit for. Not to say that you have all the answers. None of us have all the answers. But you do have an element within that is capable, that is possible of breaking a certain wall, breaking a certain barrier, and discovering something that maybe you didn't know exists. You just got to look hard enough. And that's what your journey is about. That's what this journey is about. It's to finding your one thing. And not just finding that one thing, what do you do with it? The parable of the talents. What do you do when you find your gift, when you find your one thing, your one purpose, your one calling? And we all have a calling. Those who are called, you have a calling. But what happens when the trumpets blare? What happens when you're being beckoned? How do you respond? Ultimately, that's how you're going to be judged.